What's up guys, welcome back for part 2 of the Synthwave visualizer tutorial. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, make sure you check that out. I'll have a link here for you guys on the video and in the description. So we've already ticked off our basic modeling in our particle system. Now all we want to do is add in our image, make sure our materials look good, sync up some music, render out a PNG sequence, and then compile the whole video back inside of Blender. Let's start with adding some music. Now up here we're going to see a bunch of tabs, and what these are pretty much preset workspaces. It makes navigating 2.80 a lot easier, and it just makes our workflow a little bit more efficient. We're definitely going to use that. We're going to hit this plus sign. We're going to go to video editing. I'm going to move my cursor down to the sequencer, hit Shift A, and I'm going to add in a sound. Now I'm just going to locate where my sound is, and I am going to bring that into the project. Now if we hit space, go back to our layout, we're going to see our particle system and also hear the sound back. Great, so we're one step closer. I noticed that the song is only 1249 frames, so I don't want to keep going until 1600, which is what our current timeline is set to end at. I'm going to bring that down to about 1300 for now. And what we need to keep in mind is right now our particle system is emitting all the way until 1600 still. And what I want to do is I want to find a point in the song where it starts to die down a little bit. And that's also when I want my particle system to end. So it's going to start cascading all the way down, and it's no longer going to emit any more particles. So I'm just going to skip forward here on my timeline to about 1000 and see where we're at. Okay, great. So right about here, 1060 to about 1070 is when it starts to die down a little bit. So I'm going to bring this down to 1065. Now what we also have to keep in mind here is that we still have 200 particles emitting, but we have them emitting in a shorter time frame. So it's going to bunch them up a little bit more than what we had before. If I hit play, you're going to see what I mean. Yeah, it looks like it's just one continuous stream. So what we also want to do is actually decrease the number of particles we're emitting. So I'm going to try 110 and see where we're at. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Now if I go back to 1000, perfect. So now we can see that it's no longer emitting particles. It stopped at 1065. And they almost get to the end, so I'm just going to increase the end from 1300 to about 1400, and we should be good to continue. Now what I want to do is I want to import my image, so I'm going to hop out of my camera real quick. I'm going to right click on this plane. I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to go into edge select mode, Shift Alt. I'm going to right click to select the whole loop. I'm going to hold Shift S and then go cursor to selected. Now from here, what I want to do is I want to go to File, Import Images as Planes. If you do not have that activated right now, you want to go into your Preferences, go to your add-ons, and find Images as Planes. Okay, File, Import Images as Planes, and now I'm going to go to the image that I want to bring into my project. For me, that is 40K logo smaller black. If you hit this icon here, it'll show you a little thumbnail preview of the images in that folder. I'm just going to double click that to bring it in. Now, if I hop back into my camera and I go to look dev mode, we're going to see that this is all jacked up. That's not what I want. I'm going to scale this up a bit. This add-on is really good because it takes care of some of the heavy lifting inside of the material editor. So we see we have everything set up nicely, but inside of EEVEE, we have to go through one additional step. That's we want to go to our material tab here. We want to go to our settings down here, and from blend mode, opaque, we want to go to one of these alpha modes. In this case, I'm going to pick alpha blend. Shadow mode, we don't need any. And there we go. Now if I go back to rendered mode, hit play. So sometimes this happens. The emitter will stop emitting. You see down here, this is the cache. I've noticed that sometimes that glitches out. Just come down to the particle system here and change the number down one, up one, or up one, down one, and that should fix everything. Nice. I'm gonna scale that up a little bit, move it down a little bit, and that's looking really good. Now, from here, I'm just gonna have the particles stop at 292, and I'm gonna work on our material a little bit. I'm gonna hop into our instance object. We don't need to be on the emitter because our emitter is spewing out this instance object element. And what I wanna do is I wanna go Shift A, converter, bring in a color ramp. I'm gonna connect those two up. I'm gonna go Shift A, go to vector, mapping, hook that up. Then I want to go input, object info, and bring in our location. I'm gonna set 2 colors. Now, at this point, it's really up to your artistic preference. You could pick any 2 colors I want. In this case, I want a light blue, and I want something orangey. And right now, it doesn't look like anything is happening, but what we have to do now is we're actually gonna squash a value inside of our mapping node. We're gonna take our X scale, I'm gonna hold shift so I incrementally scale backwards, and then we are going to see the magic happen. There we go. So we have our orange, then we have a nice gradation all the way down to our blue. If we hit this plus symbol, we could actually add in another point here, and we could move this closer to one of the values that we prefer. I like to just keep it in the middle. And for this tutorial's sake, we're just gonna keep it simple. I'm just gonna have those 2. I might squash the values just a little bit. So now if we kick it back to the beginning of our timeline, hit spacebar. Nice, we're getting a little bit closer. Now what I want to do is I want specific moments in the song to increase the emission strength of our shader. So what I want to do is I want to bring in I'm going to search for a value node. I'm going to bring that in. I'm going to connect that to our emission strength. And what I want to do from here is I'm just going to split my window. I'm going to bring in our graph editor. And here I want to go to 0 on my timeline. And I want to hover over our value here in the value node and hit I to insert a keyframe. I'm just going to drop this down. I'm going to select, make sure I'm on the value. I'm going to go to key. I'm going to go bake sound to F curve. And I'm going to go to the song that we brought in. So now you're going to see pretty much the sound waves of this file have been input as values to this node. So now when I hit spacebar, you're going to see the emission strength change based on the values that were baked. Cool. Now I don't want this to always be at such a small value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search and bring in a math node. And what I want to do is I want the base value to always be at 2, not 22. And I want to duplicate this math node. Shift D. And what I want to say is I want this to only affect this when it is greater than a specific value. For instance, I only want this value to be added to this value when it is above a value of 1. So now if I hit play, I should see that everything is always at a default value of 2, but when value is greater than 1, it is going to be added to 2 and be added to the emission strength. So we can see here it's 0.2, 0.2, and when it hit 1, we saw a little flash. Cool, so now it's just really coming in on those sharp stabs in the beginning, and it's going to be pretty much emitting itself all the way throughout until it starts dying down. I think that is pretty good for now. I don't want to do anything else or overcomplicate this. Obviously, you could do more with this. If you wanted to, say, only start showing the value at about frame 480, what we can do is we could set a keyframe on this greater than value. So from the beginning to 480, we could be like, have a value of 10. I don't think it ever gets to a value of 10. And at 480, we could bring this back to a value of 1. So now what we're going to want to do is set everything up to be rendered into a PNG sequence. I'm just going to go ahead and close that window. We don't need it anymore. I'm going to save real quick. I'm going to come down here to our output. I'm just going to do a standard 1080p. I'm going to pick 30 frames per second. We want PNG, RGBA 8, 15% compression is fine. We don't really need to change that. I'm going to change where my output folder is. I don't want it to be at temp. I'm going to go tutorial assets, visualizer, output, PNG sequence. And what I'm going to say here at the end is I just want this to say visualizer underscore. And every time it renders out a frame, you will see a number be added to that. So it'll go visualizer underscore 0001, and then it'll increment to 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. I'm going to make sure that our render settings are fine. 64 should be good. Obviously, you could bump this up, but I really don't see the value in doing that for this type of render. It's pretty basic. You're not going to really see a big difference, so 64 is completely fine. Yeah, so when we are ready and we are happy with how everything is looking, go ahead and hit render and render animation, or hit Control F12. I'm going to render this sequence out, and I will be back in a moment. Hey guys, welcome back. We are now done rendering out our sequence. One thing to note is I changed the frame rate from 24 to 30. This is just a cautionary tale. We're still working with the 1400 frames that we ended at here. You see our end is 1400. Just keep in mind that if you do switch from 24 to 30 frames or 60 frames, your values are going to change. So just keep that in mind. At first I was a little bit alarmed, but then I realized we did it at 24 frames, 1400. We're going to stick to that for the rest of the tutorial. But just don't forget, if you change your frame rate, you're going to have to tweak some values. Don't be alarmed. Most of the time, it's an easy fix. Now, for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to open up a new general Blender file. I'm going to continue, and we're going to be working super fast, so I'm not going to save anything. I'm just going to open up video editing workspace. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure we are in 24 frames. That's fine. I'm going to take this to 1400. I'm going to go ahead and bring in our sound again, the same one from before. And now what I'm going to want to do is go Shift A, and I'm going to bring in an image or sequence, and I'm going to go to where I rendered out my sequence. Output, PNG sequence. I'm going to click on 01. I'm going to hit A twice. I'm going to add image strip. And that added our sequence. Now what I want to do is I want to render this out to MP4 format. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our output again. I'm going to scroll down, and instead of file format PNG, I want to change that to FFmpeg video. From there, we are going to go encoding. And we're going to take that to MP4, video codec, H.264, that's standard HD. I'm going to go with high quality, encoding speed, good. I'm just going to keep that standard. And audio, we want to include audio. We have it added here. So we're going to go audio codec. We're going to use AAC. We're going to do 320 bit rate for that good quality. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this temp folder, which I don't want to be in. I'm going to go back to simple visualizer, output, PNG sequence. I want to do our final outputs folder. I'm going to accept. I'm just going to say final 1080. And as before, we are going to hit Control F12 or go to render and render animation. And what this is going to do is it's going to render our PNG sequence and our sound together, and we're going to get a final file format of just a .mp4. I will be back after I've done rendering. All right, guys, we made it to the finish line. If you stuck with me from part 1 into part 2, congratulations. You now know how to make this synthwave style visualizer using only Blender 2.8. If you want to link up with me on Instagram and show me your results using this tutorial, I would love to see them. Big shout out to 40K for letting me use his music. If you want to check out his stuff, see if you can use it inside of your own work, or if you're a musician, link up, work on a project, that'd be super cool. If this helped you guys out in any way, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'm going to try to push out some content every week. As always, I appreciate the views. I appreciate the love. Hopefully, I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.